Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, I hope that 5350 worked for you, Mr. Hoss, in the YouTube room, and it worked pretty well. Just keep in mind, this is exactly why we just don't buy on the way down. You try to buy when you see a reversal pattern. So now let me just show you examples of reversal patterns or reversal, let's say reversal and then a consolidation. So let me show you what we're talking about. So right here, yeah, I posted when it was happening. I didn't do it. I've been preparing in here, but this is a reversal after consolidation. There you go. So reversal after consolidation, pretty cool, and it refuses to go lower. That might help the NASDAQ later. The NASDAQ is down to the lower echelons of where I expected it to go. So the other end, a number of people asked me, is this some kind of inverse head and shoulders in the NASDAQ? And it might be. I would rather go for the SMH of the world that looks like that. Yeah, look at that. So that's why I'm looking at that. And yeah, that could go higher. So, I mean, this has gotten pounded and it's now down here, and you have the NVIDIA's near support. So then the next thing you want to know is, well, how about Broadcom? Is Broadcom holding? It is right in that 140 zone we talked about. So just keep that in mind. That's what I'm watching in here, at least those areas. Those areas. It doesn't mean they have to go there, but that's what I'm watching. So that area in there. So that's why, like, Lamb Research is probably a buy in here. And just keep in mind when you're trading these crazy stocks, you definitely could get in too early. Definitely could get in too early. You're caring about getting in on the way up. And as you see, even in Lamb Research, I'll show you. Give me a second. There, even in Lamb Research, I'll show you. There's Broadcom. Like I said, there's a time and a place to try to buy a bottom. This is called a Stewie pattern, where you sort of get this sort of inverse head and shoulders to look at. And then you buy in that area. Now, that doesn't mean, I mean, you have a lot of damage. Don't get me wrong. Tons of damage. You got the Russell going down to its breakout point. This is all because people worried about the economy. So why aren't I buying like the XBI I talked about? Because that's where news helps. And today news came out, Congress was investigating the pharmaceutical companies. But I'll tell you right now, when you look at some of this stuff and you look at this kind of idea, so NVIDIA, supposedly they're investigating that and the stock went straight up. So Don, if you're watching from the Chart Patterns Master, it held where we talked about. So the SMH definitely forming that inverse head and shoulders. So if I'm picking a bottom, I'm going to pick the area that's already turned. And that's what I mean by turn. We pointed out ARM earlier. So I'll just show you what we're talking about. So number one, yeah, if Lamb gets over this, it could go back to 790 or higher. I mean, this is a nice washout down the gaps. So keep that in mind. Number two in here, when we're day trading, we're looking at the arms of the world that refuse to go higher, now lower. Now, I don't know about ARM because it was a new issue and it's down in the lower echelons. But when you look at the NVIDIAs, you see the support in that area. You see, and now it's 107. So, Don, I hope you've messed around with that. Broadcom in that 141 area. So, you know, so far, so good on those kind of things. So that's why if I'm buying anything, I'm going to buy what's forming a bottom intraday when the NASDAQ is getting hit and going down to these areas. So we showed this earlier today. So I get on early, and I can't impress how important it is for preparation. Right there. So that doesn't mean you have to blindly buy the NASDAQ, but when it goes to those areas, you're looking for already what's turning. And that's why we are showing ARM, NVIDIA. And the problem with NVIDIA, you still got that gap. If I have to buy one, I'm buying Broadcom. So usually the volatility is up in these kind of situations, but at least you see what we're talking about. How about the Lam Research? Yeah, that's near support. So it's a lot of damage, don't get me wrong. But when you look at the support down here, that's your area right here. That gap, 765. And then there you look for that intraday pattern. And there's your possible intraday. But if you're just day trading, you have to look at two areas. You have to look at this inverse head and shoulders or the little bull flag right here. And that's what we're doing. We're looking at that kind of thing. So just keep that in mind. And definitely, like I said, watch this bottom. So right now, that's what we're watching. I just showed it to you. Just showed you that inverse head and shoulders. All we're doing is we're taking this, that kind of area, and we're taking that rectangle. That rectangle projects up to 224. So that's what we're watching in here. The rectangle projecting to 224. Also, you're at big support, and you have the NVIDIAs, the things that made you go down, holding up. So just ARM holding up. SMCI holding up. We showed that earlier. So let's go and show the chart of SMCI. So that's something that that's a proprietary on the chart patterns mastery that we have. So it has to do with the ATR trailing stop and our chart setups. So right now, you see it. Now, what we mean by this, and we showed it on the downside. So let me show you what we're talking about. We were showing this. So we were showing this rectangle right here. So, and it broke. So bearish, down to support. But now you got the SMH the other way. And as you see, that's what we're talking about. So we're talking about the NASDAQ going to new lows and this stop going to new lows. So if you're going to buy something, you got to buy the SMH. This is where it gets a little rough jumping on here. I'm not allowed to put in orders for you, but at least I can point out the chart. So I hope that chart helped you. Now, don't get me wrong. What do you do now? All day you're going to get these nooks and crannies of like overbought rallies. And what's going to happen is you're going to want to see how it works off overbought on like a 5 minute and a 15. So you can't go and buy it. You got to join up for the site. Sorry. You just got to join up for the site. Sorry about that. So in there. So it's not something you can buy. So getting back to it in here. How do you trade this? Well, number one, you got to go to multiple time frames. So you got to go and look at this. It's not oversold yet. How about a 5 minute? So here's another bank of charts for you for the essentials room. So here is 6 time frames. Only with the ATR trailing stop. So, and we're going to put the SMH up here. So what happens? You see that it's overbought on a, well, you see what happened there. Oversold on an hourly, but oversold doesn't mean a hill of beans when you're in a downtrend. You're looking for those patterns, the SMH, and you're looking for it to withstand any damage. So what you're going to get now is probably an intraday overbought. And then you see how it works off the overbought. I mean, that's what I'm watching. That's what I'm watching. The intraday overbought. That's what I think you're going to have to watch. And that's what I'm watching. So, and don't get me wrong, this could go and fill the gap. It's had its blip to the downside, the blip to the downside. And now it's forming that. This is exactly what I just showed you this at 778. Now, when you're trading bottoms or trying to pick bottoms, you have to look for the consolidation. That way, if you're wrong, you're going to lose less fast. That's all that means, less fast. So that's what we look at. Now, if we get in early, we just take a loss real quick. But I wanted to show you that there's your bull flag in that kind of pattern. So, and as you see, it sort of worked. Plus, some of the stocks that made you go down in the first place are already going up. So that's why we are showing the SMCI. We were showing the NVIDIA. So if those go up and AMD is stabilized, then why shouldn't LRCX go up? The one with the most bang for the buck. So that's what we're watching right now, that kind of thing. So now, if this goes right now, so it's right at resistance. If it goes back and tests this area, then we're going to evaluate if the LRCXs can hold. And that's what we're going to do. So all day, you're going to get those little twerks. You're going to get these little overbought rallies and then maybe that. So keep that in mind. I would just go to simpler trading and let's see. I don't have the link at the moment. I'm hoping the moderators do. Let me get it up here. I'm not sure this is the correct one, but that's one of them. So in the YouTube room, they were asking, how do you join? So, you know, Jay Haas, I hope I helped with that. So that was pretty exciting about it going to where we thought. So the next thing is probability. I wanted to go over probability. And like I said, I am not that set we're going at all. We're going down because the stocks that made you go down are starting to act better. So you got the AMD, you got the NVIDIA. I mean, NVIDIA is hardly down. In fact, it's filled the gap. So that brings me to the next thing that can get exciting. So yesterday, we were watching AMD undercutting its lows. Right there. That area was yesterday. So we were like, if that's undercutting the lows, why shouldn't NVIDIA go and at least test the lows, which it did. So a lot of these went undercut, which is why we were bearish on the ES and the NASDAQ in the first place. But now is a completely different situation. You got NVIDIA filling the gap. How about SMCI? Is that filling the gap? Well, not yet, but it's close. How about AMD trying to fill the gap? I'm just telling you, if these are all filling the gap, the chip ones, then why shouldn't the SMH fill the gap? So just keep that in the back of your mind. At least that's what I'm watching at the moment. So that's what I'm watching. So in here. So all I'm doing is I'm watching all the chips. So I'm watching the service now start to come in. See the little inverse head and shoulders? You don't buy it on the way down. You buy it on the way up. You buy it when you get that Stewie pattern in there like you see. AMD could be a bull flag. We had pointed out SMCI refused to go lower. So now what we're going to watch is to see if a number of these other ones can fill the gap. So you see this. So you see the AMD. So where did the AMD close? Well, the AMD closed. Well, it's up today. Forget that. How about the Broadcom? It's almost filled the gap. So all we're doing is yesterday when things undercut their gap from the day before, we were bearish. But today when a number of them are trying to fill the gap on the upside, well, we're starting to get relatively bullish. I'm not saying wildly bullish, but I'm saying relatively bullish on those. There's a lot of damage in these. But you can go through the chips. In fact, let's just go through the chips. And keep in mind the NASDAQ and Haas. You know, a lot of these things have gone to their lower objective. So you might be like, what do you mean by lower objective? Well, I'll show you on a daily. Now, there's a lot of scary things. Don't get me wrong. Lots of scary things. That's what we were showing earlier. This little Stewie pattern, usually they're at bottoms. See that trend line here? That's why I like to buy on the breakout on the way up. But to get the little Stewie pattern right here, that's May 16th. So what does that equate in the ES? That is why we were bearish on the ES. So on the right, the ES, where's that Stewie pattern on a 4-hour? Right here. Yeah, look at that. You got the breakout. This is about May 14th. That's like the breakout right in here. And guess what? It's almost there. So that doesn't mean you blindly buy. It means to look for reversal patterns in that area. And that's what we're talking about reversal patterns. That's all we're looking for. All we're looking for in here is if it gets to the support zones, where's the reversal patterns? Now, here's the scary things longer term. Scary thing longer term. This is hardly a blip. So a big sell-off, usually a sell-off takes time to develop. On the other hand, you're definitely getting topping formations. Now, the one thing in here, and I brought this up earlier, you have buyback. We're in a buyback zone. So companies can buy back their stock, which can help the companies. So like the Apple of the world, which is probably straight up. Yeah. There's your Apple. Now, see that? Here we go with tells again. If that doesn't hold, because that helped the markets earlier, if that starts going down, then I think the NASDAQ has another leg down because this stopped going up. So let's take this next to each other. Now, I want to show you the long-term stuff, but I'll show you the short-term stuff. So here's the SMH on a 15-minute chart. On the other hand, when that rallied, Apple stopped going up. Now, it didn't really go down, but it didn't go up. So you got this big old rally here, and Apple was already up. So you're starting to get some relative weakness in Apple. There you go. So you got this to go up, that stopped going up. If this fails, that's a big if. If that fails, then you got to think this is going to test the breakdown point. That's the way it looks to me. Just test the breakdown point. I mean, that's how it looks to me. So now for next week, I might look to buy something above the market as some kind of low risk call fly. But for now, I want to show you correlation. There's one correlation. Here's two more. So you have the Nikkei. Does anybody follow me on StockTwits? When you saw the Nikkei do that down to here, yeah, this arrow was there 2 days ago. So this is where it was the beginning of the year. That's a little scary for the ES, which was all the way back here. All the way back here, the beginning of the year. I look at a lot of correlated indexes as long as they have similar charts. So this had a similar chart. Similar charts yield similar outcomes. So just keep that in mind. Shows similar outcomes. So longer term, definitely, well, right now, just keep in mind where this could go. This is hardly a correction. This is like 5%. Back here, that was a lot. That was, well, it's about the same as now. This is a correction. But keep in mind, that's how you blow out. You try to buy dips. You make your, 5% on the way up, because you're lucky buying dips. And then when you get a 5% sell off, you blow out. So in the meantime, maybe in the long run you make money, but in the long run you'll lose money doing that. In the short run, sure, that can work. But I'm just telling you, there's a time and a place to play dips. And to me, to play the dips is when you get a dip to support and a reversal candle. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, you saw Apple stop going up. But that's what I'm looking at. So, Don, I know you were looking at this. The problem is, it filled the gap. So maybe some of the other ones fill the gap. The key is going to be the point of no return. So the point of no return would be if some of these go all the way back to where they were at 3 o'clock yesterday. That would have huge implications for the rest. So I'm just going to put them side by side so you get an idea. So we're going to put side by side. So what I mean by that is we're going to go into the most expensive over here. So we're going to go into the ASML. We're going to go into all of these and see how close they are to filling any kind of gaps. We're going to take it on 2 time frames. There. So obviously you see that isn't. So how about some of the other ones in that group? How about ServiceNow? Not yet. So how about Lamb? Not yet. So that's the whole thing is if some start to fill, I think the rest are going to fill. I mean, that's the way it looks to me. I mean, that's the way it looks to me. So if I see things that support, and I see them fill the gap. I mean, Netflix is only down 7. So I'm going to be watching the SMCI to see if it could get beyond the point of no return, which means filling the gap. When I watched Apple not crap out, but stop going up, then I cannot in good conscience just blindly go and buy the NASDAQ. So MongoDB, not near the gap. I'm telling you, if one fills the gap, I think the rest are going to fill the gap. Tesla, I don't know why everybody loves Tesla and keeps buying it on the way down. So like I said, you might get lucky buying on the way down, but the problem with buying on the way down is you're going to lose faster. So what I mean by that is if you go into the SMH and you buy on the way down, you're going to lose real fast here. But if you start buying on the way up, even if you're not perfect, if you get stopped out, you're just not going to lose a lot. You just lose slower. So that's what I mean. So you lose slower. But you see, the second it broke out, you had the direction right. That was a quick 4 points. So a lot of us in Chart Pattern Mastery are really into these rectangles. So the minute it broke that, the objective was 4 points. See how it bounced around in that rectangle. So 4 points gets you to 223. Close. So very interesting, very, very exciting to watch that kind of thing. And like I said, this is no guarantee you're going up whatsoever. So just keep that in mind. And so also keep in mind in here that I just can't impress enough about that correlations. So if something has demand in this area right here, but similar charts are blowing through that demand, like here, then the probability of that working goes down dramatically. Keep in mind what demand is to me. Prior bottoms can be demand, but prior tops that have multiple points of contact become big support. Then at that support, you're looking for those reversal patterns. And you're seeing it today. Forget the Nikkei on the right. Got the SMH refuses to go lower now. So you see what's going on. This is what I was telling you. All day today now, I think you're going to see these overbought rallies. Then you're going to see this. You want to see this work off its MACD by forming an inverse head and shoulders. That's what I'm going to do. So now, do you want to mess with something for next week? Well, you can. So the reason that you can is a lot of things have reached their lower objective. So like Lamb Research, it's reached its lower objective. Can you go in there and do something for next week? Well, the problem is it has a 55-point expected move, and it's moved 55 points today. But if I see the SMCAIs totally fill that gap, it's not that far. So, and I see the Broadcoms fill the gap, then I'm more likely to take the ones that haven't filled the gap to play on the long side. So, I mean, that's what I'm looking at. NVIDIA, it stopped. So I'm just telling you all day, we're going to get this. We're going to get those overbought rallies, and then we see that MACD, how they work it off. The problem is now you have all these layers of resistance. That's why I'd rather play something that doesn't have resistance if I'm going to play to the upside. There, NDX. Well, if it works this off, so I look at multiple time frames. If it can work this off by retaining this bullish structure, then heck yeah, it could go all the way to there. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, overbought just because it's overbought doesn't mean you're going higher. I mean lower. So overbought at resistance is more likely to matter. So, and when you're overbought in a downtrend, it matters. So overbought in a downtrend, and I determine that with moving averages and the ATR trailing stop matter. And then it doesn't matter if it's overbought or oversold. It's that it's over the zero line, which means then you're looking for the reversal patterns. So when the NASDAQ got overbought here, That doesn't mean to short it. It still had one more spike up. It means then to look for the reversal patterns in an over. Look at this. So you got overbought at resistance, but you didn't have the trigger yet. Now, you might say this is the trigger. No, the trigger is when it crosses this, because you already knew it was overbought. You knew it was at resistance, but you didn't have the trigger. What was another trigger? The trigger besides this is a lot of stocks that opened up on earnings fell apart. So just keep that in mind. You had AMD undercut. You had NVIDIA start to go down. Well, NVIDIA went down when AMD went down. I mentioned on the site that it was stupid NVIDIA was rallying. But the whole point is when the other stocks were selling off, then this overbought becomes a lot bigger deal. So it's all a question of overbought and oversold, of how you combine it with other things. I just can't stress enough, it's not one indicator. So if RSI works for you, just it's more than one indicator. I mean, that's the way I look at it. And as you see, here you go. Overbought, market sell off. So just respect that with the overbought, with the MACDs. Like I said, you could use an RSI, you can use a MACD, whatever makes you happy. But the point is that intraday, if you see that overbought, then you look for the reversal patterns. Or let's put it this way. If you're in a downtrend, you see an overbought on a 10-minute chart, then you have to see how it works off the overbought condition. So right now, if you see this go back to here, but this form a bullish flag like that, yeah, I'm going to get bullish on the NASDAQ. So, that's what I'm watching. How about the ES? Well, it's at resistance and overbought. So here you go. It was overbought here also. Doesn't matter if it's overbought. It matters if it's overbought near resistance, means I'm not chasing it. And then I see if it retains a bullish structure in some way. So that's what I'm watching in here. I don't see it at the moment, other than this needs to hold, SMH. So now what else brought markets down? Well, the Banks Act, they brought the markets up. We correctly called the banks getting nailed and the Lenars getting nailed. Now, well, I'll show you. There's, we only have, let's say, 4 hours left. But I would watch the Goldman Sachs. There. So you see where not to buy it. You don't buy it on the way down. You buy it when at least you could draw something to justify. So if you're dealing with, let's say, a significant other breathing down your neck of why the hell did you do that trade? Well, at least here you can say because of a trend line. At least you could draw a trend line. If they said, why the hell did you buy it here? Well, it wasn't there. So just keep that in mind in there. At least that's what I watch. So now, yeah, if that gets over that, sure, it could go all the way back up to here. Maybe. But if that does that, then the one that's at the biggest support, which is the NASDAQ, is more likely to go all the way to here. So that's what I'll be setting up for everybody on the site. And I'm telling you, if Apple goes up, if the SMH, and this is all about trying to interpret if things are working off their overbought well. So let's go and revisit ES. What I mean by that is if you take multiple time frames, it's oversold on an hourly. That doesn't mean a hill of beans. It was oversold on an hourly here and got trashed. 15-minute. Yeah, am I going to buy that? No. But I will tell you that I'll see if it's going to retain some bullish structure in this zone. So bullish structure to me means it works off this overbought. When I'm day trading, I'm using a 15, a 5, and a 1. So right now, yeah, if it sits here, great. I would love to see this go back to 0 and this form a bull flag. That's what I'm watching. So I think that's a big deal. You don't have it yet, but when I look at this as probability, so it's trying to form a good pattern. This doesn't mean to short when it's overbought. Right now, it's trying to form a bottom because longer term, it's at support. Shorter term, it's at resistance. I think you could see this clearly now. The resistance up here, but if this works this off like that, and this up here like this, yeah, then all of a sudden you got a trend line that way. So yeah, I mean, I would not buy here because it's overbought at resistance. Doesn't mean you have to short, but I'm sure not buying in here when it's overbought at resistance. So that's an answer. I hope that answers your question. So Apple, I have no idea. I think, well, you know, I don't have an idea in Apple other than two things. Number one, they have buybacks. Now, keep in mind when it was in the buyback blackout, everybody was bearish. 5 weeks prior to earnings, they voluntarily don't buy back stock. That's this area. Yeah, it went straight up. The moral of the story is when they can't buy back stock, bearish patterns are more likely to work. So when we saw that doji, we got bearish on Apple because it had a bear flag. Now there are two sides to the story. One of them is this is way up here relative to where the Broadcoms of the world are. On the other hand, this went down when the Broadcoms and the Microsofts and the NVIDIA went crazy. So just keep this in the back of your mind. Broadcom since May is here. Since the beginning of the year, look at that. Where Apple, the beginning of the year, has done nothing. So, do I think it could go to all-time highs? I don't know. I'm not playing it here. I'm waiting for a defined pattern. But did I just help about this? If you're a futures trader, what do you see? 15-minute overbought at resistance. Warning. That means not to chase. No doubt. There you go. Overbought at resistance. That's a sell signal, not a buy signal. But you don't have to sell. All I'm telling you is you don't chase strength when you see that. That's all I mean. And that's all I mean. So it's all about percentages. All about percentages. So to me, the percentage, at least when I'm short-term trading, when this is overbought at resistance, and my overbought is a 310.16 MACD. When it's overbought at resistance, the probability is you're not going up any more than that. Now, if there are other stocks in the NASDAQ, like the SMCI, that are overbought and stay overbought, that's a whole different situation. So if this gets back up to here, the old if then. So if that stays overbought, when this gets back to zero, then I'm more inclined to think the NASDAQ is going to stay up. As you see, so far we've been dead right on the downside. Dead right. So just keep that in mind. So you might say, well, it's overbought. Should we go and short something? This is too sloppy a pattern to play the NASDAQ on the downside. So, I mean, in my opinion. Now, if markets, I don't know an Apple, I don't think it's going to all-time highs. But I do think the buyback matters. So, and like I said, I can't share Thinkorswim links on the YouTube stuff. Sorry. That's definitely for the other rooms. So, and like I said, there isn't a compelling play at the moment. There's a lot of damage in the markets, Mitch. So I don't have an idea in here. So I don't have to have a trade every second is the key. So do the Citigroups. Do you buy Citigroup on the way down? Absolutely not. Do you buy Bank of America on the way down? Absolutely not. Do you buy it on the way up? Well, at least it's at massive support. You got that going for you. You know, probably because of geopolitical events, I'm not touching it until Monday. So, like I said, and also, if the NASDAQ is overbought at resistance, then the probability that Apple is going to have another leg up goes down. Like you see. Because if it's overbought at resistance, the NASDAQ's going to go down, which is going to pull Apple down. So just keep that in mind. Now, Apple has a big old buyback. So if we see this down 600 and Apple stays right here, yeah, the Essentials room, check in the Central room of the Chart Patterns Mastery. We're probably going to play Apple puts on the under the market on the close if they're cheap enough. Not now. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So in there, just keep that in the back of your mind. And like I said, I do not, everybody has different indicators. But I've done it 44 years. What is the first thing I watch? Because if you go on a 21, what happened to the Nikkei? How did that do with the 20? Now we'll take a 21. How did that work? Not good. Not good. So I'm just telling you, when all hell breaks loose, the first priority for me is price support and resistance. I just can't stress that enough. So if it works for you, great. But I'm just telling you that if you see this blowing through any kind of moving average, and you see this blowing through any moving average, how did the 21 work in there? Bad. How about the weekly? How did it work? Well, if the NASDAQ is under it and the Nikkei is under it, then I'm less inclined to use it. Now, there are a lot of times it's incredibly helpful. But when I watch this, look at the price support. That's the bigger deal. So when I see that hit price support, then I will look for a reversal pattern on the upside. So at least that's how I play it. So if it works for you, great. In fact, we've adapted these charts to include the 21. I mean the 20. So I use a 9 EMA. I use these. These are the ones that most hedge funds use. A 9 exponential, 20 move simple, 50 simple. The 50 I'm using on a daily for a trend identifier. The 20 I'm using to see if correlated charts are already blowing through it. In the 9, yeah, you could use that as a stop intraday. So in here, what do I mean by that? We'll go into trading view. I'll show you. And like I said, any indicators that make it, that work for you, great. I've just seen when all heck breaks loose, go for the price support and resistance. But here, I'll show you what we're talking about with the Nikkei. So here's the Nikkei. This was on StockTwits, by the way. So if you follow me on StockTwits, great. Because a lot of the charts I post, it erases in the chat by the end of the day. This was on 2 days ago. This blew through the weekly 20. It blew through the weekly 50. So now you wonder about this. So if that happens, does that mean that now you see why I use the 20? If this blew through the 20, then this is more likely at the minimum to go to the 20. So this blew through the 50 on a weekly is really scary. So you see that probability. On the left, I'm going to put the NASDAQ. So you're going to see the NASDAQ broke through it. We've had all these in here. So when this decisively got to it, at least, we said, then this is going to go to it. So that's one way we use the 20 about correlations. So now price support. Yeah, that might work. But like I said, and I hope the MACD works for you, just keep in mind that certain patterns might work, but if you see other correlated indexes blow through certain moving averages, then the moving averages are less likely to work on other indexes. That's all I mean. So if it works for you, great. But I'm just saying if one blows through it, then, I'm less likely to use it. That's all I mean. Now, getting back to it, intraday. How did this work? Overbought at resistance. The only thing going for the S&P is it's overbought and hasn't really gotten hit. So when I'm gone, definitely watch that. You don't have to respect it of buying anything, but now that I've seen this do this, how's it working off the overbought? Not bad. Didn't even go to test this. How is this working off the overbought? Not bad. So what do I do now? I'm going to look for when this sold off, what formed a bull flag? Did anything? Well, we know about Apple. Did Meta? No. Did Nvidia? No. Did AMD? No. So not really bull flags. The only one is like what you correctly called was Apple. Now I'll go to a bunch of other charts. So are there any others that are bull flags? Maybe GNRC. So hurricane stock. Yeah, I didn't buy it down here. I had to wait for the cross. And we go through another technical indicator. And that's a big red candle. If you see a big red candle after earnings in GNRC, because a lot of times this has had this, you do not buy it on the way down. On the other hand, sure, you could look to buy it in this zone, as long as you combine it with a short-term reversal pattern. There you go. So that's how we do it, so we don't lose fast. That's all I mean. So do I post on TradingView? Yeah. Let me just tell you, it's a pain in the butt a lot to trade. I've posted, man, I'll show you. I posted like 1,500 ideas. The problem is you have to do so many descriptions to fill it in. Where on StockTwits, I can just go and copy and paste and put one sentence. So I don't post as much there. On StockTwits, I post a ton. So, Mitch, it's a great question about what's the most compelling thing in here. I have to think the SMH because it's already done everything I thought it would do. In fact, if you're just doing intraday, look at that. It came back to test. So how would you play SMH? Well, the first thing is I got to look at a weekly chart and a daily. Really in the grand scheme of things, it was here. But it did hold. I'll give you that. So Mitch, compelling, probably. Do I mess with this for hurricane season? Well, maybe. I would rather mess with SMH, but maybe going out into here is some spread. But you definitely, in this type of market, you got to look for the massive support zones. The other one I don't mind is the QQQ in this area. But then you look at the grand scheme and, it was down here. So this is the problem I'm having right now. Now, some have been looking at like the Fibonacci's. Did anybody see my Fibonacci? Haas, did you see it on StockTwits? I'm not Mr. Fibonacci King in here whatsoever, but I'll show you. This is from 53,000 followers. Sort of cool. But I'll show you the Fibonacci. Yeah, sort of. There you go. So there's your 0.5. So if that's going to the 50% retracement, you have to think the SPY is. Remember, I'm really into correlations. I'm not sure if I put it. There you go. There. So, Haas, how was that? So when this went to the 50, that went to the 50% retracement. That's pretty close. So now this at the 61.8. Does this go to 52.63? Well, this is so close. Now you use the price support. But Haas, I hope you saw that one. That was pretty cool. So when this went to the 50, that went to the 50%. But the scary thing now is definitely that the Nikkei is, well, now you got to look at this. I don't have a lot of time, but I'll show you. And in Essentials, I can copy and paste the image. So we're going to go and take Fibonacci's. Like I said, I'm not the Fibonacci king in here. I'm going to take off everything. I would close your eyes. And I'll just show you at least my perspective on how I'm trying to be careful. So let me just show you. This is what I'm watching. I mean, for the long term. For the long term. So I'm watching this. There are a bunch of different levels. Number one, in the grand scheme, like you see, this is hardly a blip. But let's take some Fibonacci's in here because I know a lot watch them. So I'm taking April. I mean, this is sort of a, there. So there's your 50. There's your 61.8. I mentioned that from the April low. So, and you see on the right, there's your 50. But this is where it gets difficult. Now go and put on the left the Nikkei. What has that done? It's gone to the next one. From the entire rally, right when I did a class on short selling, I'm proud of, right in here. Now we got to do this. So, and the reason you might be like, why on earth are you using the Nikkei? Because I'm looking at the correlation since last year. Rally, rally. Now it's taken back this. And this is where it gets scary. And I'm not saying to go and short the world here. I'm starting to see some positive development short term. But take here. 50% retracement. It's already done it. That's scary. But then, maybe it's some carry trade with the yen. So on the left, go and take other indexes. Go and take like the German market. Let me find it in here. I like foreign markets. I think it's pretty cool to correlate them. Well, we'll take the FTSE because I erased the German by mistake. That's done nothing. Still holding up. But I'm just telling you, if this did the 50% retracement, which is totally healthy, and it did it from here, you're talking about 4,900. See that 4,900? 50%. So in fact, I thought I put 50% retracement today. But that's what I'm watching. Eventually. Right now, you got the buyback area. You got the things are hitting support. So, but eventually. So where would that put the NASDAQ? You don't want to know. That's that's 17.5. It's not that far from it. Believe it or not. So I'm just telling you, this is not where I'm looking to short the markets. I'm looking to find bullish reversal patterns. That's what I'm looking for in here. Bullish reversal patterns in this area because we've already reached some support. So that's where I am right now. That's where I am. So everybody take care. Have a